All right, Chip, are you ready to tell them everything?
Greg, I'm ready. I'm excited. I'm a little nervous to tell them everything.
Yeah, I'm not sure we should do it either, but hey, that's what we're here for. So let's give it a shot.
Let's do it. Hang tight, guys. Hey guys, and welcome back to Arizona Insider. I'm joined by good friend Greg Corbett from the Living in Phoenix, Arizona YouTube channel. And on this channel, we're dedicated to showing you everything you need to know about moving to or living in the Phoenix metro area. So if that's something that you're interested in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and hit that bell to be notified the next time we post a video. So if you're even thinking about making a move to Phoenix Metro, shoot us a call, shoot us a text, shoot us an email, whatever it is. We got your back when it comes to moving to Phoenix Metro.
So Chip, like one of the big things that obviously has affected everybody over the past year is coronavirus. I think that's something that we should address probably top of mind because there's been so many changes from last year to this year. For anybody who's coming, they need to know what Arizona looks like.
Absolutely.
How's it going to affect them? So just from your personal perspective, like how have things changed for you? Is there anything that like you could probably say, hey, based on my experience, this is something you might have to think about?
Yeah, so I guess the big difference is the working situation. So I'm married, and my wife Danielle was going to an office Monday through Friday up until the coronavirus hit, and now she works from home 50% of the time.
Yeah.
So me and her having to juggle so I work from home all the time. So having to balance that has been a challenge, but it's also been a blessing because I've been able to spend more time with her.
Right.
So how about you? How's it affected?
I think it's very similar. So there's a lot of people probably going through this where you're now working remotely or you have your spouse or family member who's now working remotely from home. Can be somewhat challenging sometimes, but also brings the family together. We totally get that it's positive and negative. From an Arizona perspective in general, I think a lot of people are seeing, and they're coming from places where there's been massive shutdowns. We had a shutdown last year, but ever since probably the end of May, everything's been pretty much open. We've had restrictions. People are wearing masks out when you're going shopping, that type of thing. People are trying to take safety precautions, but we're an area, especially right now in the winter, where the weather's great and people are still coming here. There's still activities. I had a buddy in town from Seattle. He had his kids' baseball games that were happening here. So we're still drawing in a lot of activity. That's a positive for a lot of people. It's also raising and spiking the numbers a little bit.
Yes.
So a little bit good and bad, something you need to consider when you're coming.
Yeah, 100% need to consider it. But like Greg was saying, just know it's kind of been business as usual here since May. So take whatever precautions that you need to stay safe, but no, you're not really limited here.
Our restaurants are open. They're supposed to be at 50% capacity depending on where you go. Sometimes it doesn't look like 50. It looks like more than 50%. So if it's something that bothers you and you're trying to stay away from it, then obviously be aware of that. But for those of you who are like, hey, I'm going to take a chance and go out and enjoy myself, totally understand that too, because I've done it once or twice.
Yeah, we get out from time to time.
Yeah, so. You got to support the small businesses too. All right, so from that, let's branch into another big topic that's always a huge pro when it comes to Arizona, maybe a little bit less this year, and that is the dining and nightlife. And I know plenty of people come to Arizona, the Scottsdale scene, the Phoenix scene. There's places all over the metro area that have some of the best dining that you can find. Now it's not as easy to go out. It's not as easy to set a reservation. So this year's a little different. Yeah. So talk about that. Have you experienced anything on your end with that?
Yeah, some of my favorite places, I feel like it's twice as hard to get into or twice as hard to get a reservation. So just be aware of that. You know, a lot of even the smaller restaurants may require you to book out a reservation like on a Wednesday or a Thursday night. I took Danielle out to dinner for her birthday a couple weeks ago, and we waited almost 2 hours on a Thursday night. You know, it was worth it. We got to go to a nice little hole-in-the-wall restaurant, or hole-in-the-wall bar next door to have a cocktail before our dinner, so it worked out. But just be aware there could be longer wait times out there.
And even with all of this going on, like I forget half the time, and I'm like, why can't I get in, or what's going on? So you kind of forget, or maybe it's just me because I'm oblivious sometimes to stuff. But But you just be aware of that like, hey, especially if you're coming out and visiting, because a lot of people come out to visit to see, hey, am I going to like it here? And you just expect that you're going to get in somewhere, and then all of a sudden, like, everything is not available. So before you do that, do your research and make sure that where you want to go, you can get into.
Absolutely. You don't want to be here and not be able to get into that restaurant, trust me.
For sure. And they're so good.
So good. So many great places to eat here, you guys. I'm sure there's great places to eat in every state, but Arizona's nightlife and restaurant scene, I just feel, is very unique and offers a lot.
We're probably still one of the best.
Have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a laundry list of restaurants in my head, and it just goes on for days, all the great places
Call
to go.
us and we'll tell you. But
reach out to us.
If you're finding this content helpful to you, please give us a like. It's definitely helpful for us, and the channel helps us put out more content to you, so give it a shot.
Yeah, hit that thumbs up. So based on what Greg was saying about restaurants and nightlife, and if you're planning that move, being aware that places are busier this time of year with all that's going on. But also, Arizona can be very seasonal with our tourism. So from about, I'd say, late October to the end of May, we have a lot of snowbirds or people that spend half the year here. So if you're coming out that time of year, it can be even busier. Traffic's a little bit busier. Restaurants are a little bit busier because of the tourism, or as we like to call it, the snowbirds. Yeah,
and I mean, this year is going to be, again, a little bit different than normal because we don't have as much traffic as we typically do for the big events. A lot of the big events, especially this time of year when it comes to like all the auto auctions, Barrett-Jackson, the Waste Management Phoenix Open, a lot of the big draws that draw in so much traffic and people, they're not having the crowds this year, and so people aren't coming into town, I'm sure. It's a little bit less traffic this time of year than what we're typically used to seeing, but since half the stuff isn't open or is limited as far as open, and maybe it doesn't feel like it still feels busy. But it's definitely something to keep in mind. And it kind of talking about traffic in general. So thinking about traffic when it comes to the busy season versus the non-busy season, typically around this time of year, you're gonna see more people on the roads. It's like bumper to bumper everywhere. Doesn't seem that bad this year, so I guess from a positive, that's a little bit better. I'm not sure what you're seeing.
Yeah, I feel like since everything started happening last year, I feel like Phoenix Metro's rush hour traffic hasn't been what it was before. Now, that is like a pro and a con in itself, because I don't think our rush hour is really that bad, even when there's no coronavirus going on. But it has its moments and places, don't get me wrong.
Depending on where you had to,
stay away from the I-10. It can be really bad. But because of everything that's going on, like Greg was saying, a little bit less of tourism, less draws, the traffic and the rush hour is not really what it usually is.
People working from home, so you just don't have to have people constantly commuting to and from work. That has reduced traffic tremendously, but it's not totally gone. There's still a little bit of traffic, but I mean, compared to what other people are going through right now, it is probably nothing.
And on top of that, they're expanding almost every major freeway in the valley, so you have that working for you too. There's construction, but they're making it bigger to accommodate, folks moving out here.
Yeah, so I don't think, thankfully, traffic is not going to be a major con for most people, but we do want to bring it up because there are certain hot spots that tend to be challenging. All right, so I want to transition into a topic that was a big thing for me. You might not have dealt with it as much being a native here, but somebody who, I was born in California. I grew up mostly in Colorado. I'm used to seasons. I'm used to green. So when I come down here to Arizona and I'm like flying in on a plane and I look down at like the desert, there's like no green at all. Now flying in on the plane is different from actually when you get down here and you start seeing things in person, but it's obviously a big change for a lot of people who are moving here. So I don't know if you've had experience, just traveling around, you obviously see differences from here and there, but talk to people about like what it's like living in the desert versus coming from a place that has a bunch of trees, grass, rain, whatever.
I mean, I think like you're saying, Greg, other than a few parts of the valley, like you're gonna get a lot of desert landscape, a lot of palo verdes, a lot of cactus, and a lot of that landscape looks the same year round. A lot of gravel front yards, which was low maintenance, but you don't have
not always the most attractive.
Not always the most attractive. The colors don't really change, and to see the differences in greenery, you almost have to drive out of the city to see it. Which is good and bad in its own right, but when you're spending most of your time in the valley, get used to summer season and not summer season, and
Right.
the foliage almost always looking the same. I mean, even in the summertime, it looks the same.
I mean, there's certain neighborhoods that you can find that have been established for a while that have like a little bit more mature landscaping, greener grass. We've done a couple videos on some of these neighborhoods, that type of thing. But man, like even with that, like it's just not the same as like, I mean, one of my favorite things to do when I'm flying into other states is like look down and just see all the greenery or just driving through. It's something I miss. It's something that like, you know, I love Arizona, but I miss that. That is something that I truly miss. It is nice to be able to get out of town and go see it here and there, and we're not too far away from that. But if you like that kind of green environment, it's just going to be different here.
Yeah, it's not going to happen here. And I can think in my childhood going to visit my grandparents who lived in North Carolina, and you go out there in October, November, and you got all the orange and yellow leaves falling down everywhere. You're having to rake it. That's just not the case here.
No, that's a huge point. Like you don't get the fall leaves, the change of colors. We don't get the seasons here.
No.
And that was a big thing too. Like coming from Colorado, growing up there, it's like, you know, you kind of miss that a little bit in my mind. Now, I talked to my wife a little bit about this. I think people who are natives, they just kind of know, you know, what it's like. But if you're coming from a different place and you're like, hey, I'm used to fall leaves, I'm used to getting that kind of that smell of that snowfall that's going to be coming in the late November, early December, and just kind of get you ready for the holidays. It's just been hard for me. Like I've had a challenge with that. You know, you get over it to a certain extent. I always tell people like once January 1st hits, it's like you don't care about that stuff anymore. But you know, for family times and stuff like that, it's something that I would say is important.
Well, I think of something kind of comical here. The only true like landscape change in Phoenix Metro is when your summer Bermuda grass dies and you have to plant winter ryegrass. So you're manually having to put your grass in so it can acclimate to the new weather. But that's a change, right? The grass changing.
It's a pain in the butt too. But
it's like a month process each year. But that's part of life here.
I mean, again, I know a lot of people, they're coming from crazy snow or whatever conditions. A lot of you are like, hey, screw that. Like we're coming from a lot worse conditions on our end. So totally understand that. So every time I'm complaining about somebody or something, somebody will put me in check and be like, hey, live where I was living before. So I get that, but just for, you know, for people who think that's important, you know, you just got to know about that here.
Not going to see that here.
All right, so we were just talking about greenery here in Arizona. So it kind of makes me think of something new that just happened for 2021. And that is that we are now joining the states of recreational marijuana.
So medical marijuana was legalized here, I don't know, like 2016 maybe. So you could go apply and get like a special card and walk into a store. But just with the past election, now anybody can walk.
Is that happening right now?
I just saw on the news last week they just now opened the first 70 recreational marijuana shops. So if that's your cup of tea, you don't need a special card. You just need to be 21 years of age and you can walk in and purchase what you need to.
I think there's probably a million opinions on whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. I personally voted for it. I wanted it to happen. I've never been into a dispensary before myself. I kind of want to try it. But it's not like I've never smoked before or anything like that in my life. I have, but I'm not a user. But I think hopefully it'll be good for the economy. Hopefully it'll reduce a lot of the drug crimes. Hopefully it'll reduce a lot of negativity that was involved with it.
Absolutely.
You obviously have to be careful with certain things. You don't want to get it in the hands of your kids. There's plenty of things to be concerned about. I get that, but I think from a positive perspective, I think it will be a good thing for Arizona. But for people who are looking to move here, if you didn't know about it, now you know.
Something to know. And also, I was reading up on it. There's a tax on it, so that's kind of the big thing that got passed. So if you're a recreational user, you're going to pay, I believe it's an additional 16% on top of whatever you're purchasing. If you have the medical card, I'm pretty sure you don't pay that additional tax. But that tax is what's going kind of back into the state, as you will.
I think my arm's starting to hurt.
Oh, you want me to get you an appointment?
Need a doctor's appointment.
I know, a doctor says my neck's a little creaky.
16%.
16%, which, you know, I haven't spent it yet, but
look, if it helps raise money for things that need it, then I'm all for it.
Yeah.
If it goes to education here in Arizona, this is another thing that will come up. But we do need the revenue for other things that need the but a lot of times I think everybody knows is sometimes these taxes go to places you don't want them to go. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But hopefully it goes to the right places.
Yeah.
We'll see. And Chip, since we're talking about new laws, the other big one that just got passed along with the recreational marijuana was this education bill. It is a tax on higher earners and also probably small business owners too. So, for people who are, I think it's couples making over 300K.
Yeah.
You're going to get an additional probably 3% tax on top of what your wages are. So that's going to be a huge effect on certain people coming in, especially people who have small businesses coming in. If you are a higher earner, like one of the big benefits of coming to Arizona was because of the lower taxes that we've had. A lot of people have been drawn to that here. Overall, we still are a pretty low tax state.
Yes.
But with that new law coming in, that's going to change things a little bit. A lot of people were not happy with that. The money is supposed to be raised for education.
Yeah.
We are in a state that has typically ranked fairly towards the bottom overall when it comes to schools.
Yes.
So we need that.
We do.
We need to improve the schools here. But depending on your point of view, some of that money may be going to the right places or wrong places. I don't know if you have any life experience with any of that going on right now, or if you know anybody who's affected by it.
Well, I guess where I try to chime in on this is these taxes on the businesses. So I've worked for some smaller businesses here in the Valley years ago, and I still stay in touch with these business owners. Anyways, those taxes could kind of get passed down to their employees in some sense. So just be aware of that tax increase. It could ultimately affect almost anybody living here in some fashion. So just be aware of that.
I'm sure a lot of people will talk about, like, if it hits small businesses, then you're potentially losing employees, especially with certain small businesses that are already being challenged by everything going on with coronavirus. I would like to hope, because I'd like to be optimistic every now and then, even though, I can be negative here and there, but I would like to hope that hopefully it will create a better education system for us, which creates, our kids just getting a better environment, them expanding and obviously doing better things in Arizona as a whole, which ends up being more of a positive.
For sure.
Optimistic, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, to that too, it's ultimately should put more dollar per pupil in our education system, which we need.
Yeah, but for those, if you're dollar driven and you're like, hey, I'm choosing between Arizona and like Texas or something like that, it's something you got to know. Because it might hurt your bottom line.
Yeah, good point. So Greg, I think when a lot of people are considering a move to Arizona and then obviously living here, one of the first things they think about is our weather. And I think if you don't know much about it, you probably associate Arizona with just pure heat. Like, we're in the desert, we're in the valley, and it's hot all the time. And it is hot in the summertime. But there are some great ways to stay cool in the summertime, like having a pool in your backyard, going to our local water parks, or if it's maybe leaving Phoenix Metro to go to higher elevations, escape the heat. But Greg, what would you say to the folks when considering living here, and then what it's like, in July, August, and June?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And we, obviously this is usually a first topic. We wanted to save it for a little bit later in the video because everybody talks about it so much. But let's just be brutally honest. The summers suck. Like, I don't like them at all. Like, I'm not a fan of being here during the summer. That's why, my wife and I are considering trying to get like a second home in Flagstaff, which if it wasn't for Corona and having the ability to work remotely, we wouldn't even be able to have that option. So I'm not going to sugarcoat this one because it's hot. Especially last year, we had record heat, record 110 days. And look, again, we talked to so many people who are like, hey, I'm coming from brutal snow and brutal cold and I don't care about the heat. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so come enjoy the heat. A lot of people love the heat. But from my perspective, I have a tough time with it, especially with like having a little girl right now. We have an almost 2-year-old. Like she can't go outside during the summer. Like I love going and visiting other places during the summer and being like, hey, let's go look.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one. The rest of the year,
perfect.
We're in good shape. Like it's hard to complain, but but those summers are hard. So you've been here your whole life. Like are you just used to it, or like what do you think?
I think I've like started to grow accustomed to it, and like Greg, like I'm not a huge fan of the heat, but being like a desert rat that I am now, like I'll still go golf at 3 o'clock in the middle of August because I can get a cheap golf rate, and I'll suffer for it. But I don't enjoy that part of the heat. But like Greg was saying, him and his wife and his family, they're looking to get a place in Flagstaff to escape that heat. And I've been lucky. My family has lived in or had property up in the White Mountains of Arizona, which is similar in elevation to Flagstaff, about 7,500 feet. But I've always been able to escape the heat in about 3 hours.
Right.
So that's something to consider. Yeah, while it's hot here, you can very much be out of the heat in, no joke, like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Flagstaff, depending on where in the valley you can get to the White Mountains, like you can escape that heat.
Right.
And up there, you even get a little bit of a different season a little bit. But just know you're able to get out of it. And I guess the other thing to talk about is if you're going to be stuck here in the valley, I don't want to say stuck, but if your summers are going to be
if you don't have a second home or you're not going up anywhere on the weekends.
Yes. Thank you. With that heat's going to come higher electric bills. So depending on how cool you like your home, my wife likes it cool, so we see some bigger electric bills, like north of $600. So obviously that's going to depend on the size of your home.
What's the square footage of that? Let's give a
so our house is right at 3,000 square feet, and Danielle will run the cool at about 75 degrees at night.
Okay.
Keep it at
that's chilly.
That's chilly.
Yeah.
And then during the day, meaning when the peak hours, when the electric company's charging us the most, we keep it at about 78, 79, and that'll yield $600, $650 electric bills.
Yeah.
Now there are so many ways where you can be efficient with that, but you're going to have higher electric bills no matter the size of your home.
Yeah. So there's so many things to take away from the summers here. And like Chip was saying up front, like my wife and I, before we had our daughter, I mean, we would spend half our time in the summers just hanging out in the pool and enjoying that. And it wasn't always comfortable, but at least we could enjoy our time. Now, when you have kids, you got to think of activities for them to do. You have to think about them getting sunburned and all of their, making sure that they're taken care of. So it changes a little bit with anybody's lifestyle, that type of thing. But again, you just be prepared for it. If you're not a heat fan, it's going to be a challenge.
It can take some adjusting, and water is your best friend. Drink a gallon of water a day, especially in the summertime. And it's hard to do, but you'd be surprised how easy that water goes down in the summer.
Don't come out here expecting to hike Camelback Mountain or any of the mountains out here, like in the middle of the summer, go out during the day. That's where people get in trouble. So be careful about that for sure.
Yeah, stay away from the hiking in the summertime,
Unless you go out early in the morning.
Yes, when the sun rises at about, I think 4:45, 5 a.m. in the summertime. So you have I'd say probably an hour and a half window in the summertime from when the sun rises to when it's up a little bit, where it's cool for a little bit.
Get back before 10. I mean, it's going to be warm, but you can deal with it.
Yeah, there's ways around it.
Yeah.
So we just got done talking about the heat. So that brings up another good point that we really want to talk about, and that's the pests, the wildlife that's out there. A lot of Arizona homes are up against mountain preserves or near mountains, and that's going to yield scorpions. It's just a thing. I've seen scorpions my whole life in my house. I haven't been stung, but they are there, and that means you're going to have to treat them with a good, reputable pest control company. Have you experienced pests, rattlesnakes, anything in your time here?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things to talk about here, and actually, this is where it goes pro and con on both on Arizona. When it comes to scorpions, I have been stung once before. It sucked. It wasn't fun. So yeah, I try to stay away from them. And yes, when you're in the communities that are more mountainous, you're going to find way more scorpions there. What I've found overall, but they're sporadically in neighborhoods throughout the metro. Thankfully, I haven't seen one in any home that I've been in over 10 years. So there are plenty of areas that don't have to deal with them. So it's not a given that you're going to have scorpions, but there are neighborhoods that are more prevalent than others. Let's talk about other things. Let's talk about, I know we've had several people that maybe get maybe not afraid, but just they're worried about their dogs, and they don't want whether it's the
coyotes. In my neighborhood, we have a little bit of a common area in between the homes, kind of like not a preserve, but just a common desert area. And there's a pack, I think it's called a pack of coyotes that have burrowed or found their home here. So literally like every other night, we'll hear them howling, like just outside the window. And then some of our neighbors have smaller dogs. So if you have a dog that's, I'd say 30 pounds or less, like be very cognizant keeping them inside those, because those coyotes will think it's prey. And our neighborhood has lost a couple of chihuahuas to the coyotes.
Cats?
Same, cats 100%. I have literally seen coyotes in my neighborhood with cats in their mouth. So just be aware of that. If you have a bigger dog, they typically won't mess with them. My dog Lola's about 60 pounds and they want nothing to do with her.
Bobcats, we see bobcats up in like North Scottsdale area. We see javelina. So for people with small pets, I mean, it's definitely something that people need to be concerned about. Outside of scorpions, and I mean, we get cockroaches at our house, which my wife absolutely can't stand. I'm sure a lot of people go through that same. They're harmless. They're just annoying and ugly, and they just don't want to deal with them. But you see them; they're just part of life here. You know, thankfully we don't have too many issues when it comes to like mosquitoes. I mean, if we get a lot of rain, maybe we'll see some mosquitoes.
A little bit,
see a few flies. It's not a huge, but like we can open up all our doors here in Arizona and have indoor outdoor weather, and you might have a couple bugs come in, but it's not like a lot of people have to deal with where it's just going to be an infestation. So I think we've got it pretty good here on that. But when it comes to, I'd say scorpions, coyotes, rattlesnakes, when you're going hiking, stuff like that, stuff to watch out for sure.
Stuff you got to be cognizant of.
Probably the most important topics, we're kind of saving this for last, but you know, it is hugely important. It's one of the first things people talk about when they're looking to move here to Arizona. Cost of living has always been like one of the biggest pros of moving to Arizona, especially for people looking to move here, because you know, from a general perspective, it's been much lower than a lot of places that people are moving from. We're finding that that's ticking up a little bit.
It is.
With all the migration of with everybody moving here. You know, you're going to be saving money if you're moving from California, New York, and probably Oregon, Washington. A lot of places you're still saving money when you come here, but it is no longer the affordable place that I think what people used to think. What are you seeing over the last year, Chip, of what we've changed?
I mean, just across the board, home prices and home values going up anywhere in the valley. So you got to be aware of that. And like Greg said, with the people moving here, there's about 200 people a day that are moving to Phoenix. So there's more demand. And then just in general, like our housing supply is lower than normal. So.
Well, and I think a lot of people are seeing this across the nation. It's definitely not just specifically to Arizona, but I think Arizona is always in at least like the top 3 or 4 when it comes to new people moving in. So that has been, again, a huge driver of driving prices up. I mean, if you think about what we were seeing last year versus now, I mean, it's night and day difference. We're continuing to have multiple offers. So basically, when we're having these multiple offers, we're having prices that are driven above the list price. I've seen anywhere 20, 30, even more $1,000 on top of list price. So that is something that people need to be aware of. Obviously, that's going to be a con for a lot of people, knowing that, you know, if you're trying to come in here and you're like, hey, here's my budget and this is what I'm trying to fit into, and you're seeing these prices going up, it might be a challenge for you. But we're hoping, obviously, with the interest rates continuing to be as low as they are, hopefully that'll be, you know, a huge driver as far as keeping your payments down and still give you the opportunity to be in a place where you can get some growth.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, with interest rates, like Greg said, being low, and still our average cost of living in general is it's not bad. I mean, I wish I could average what the property taxes are, but maybe correct me on this, but you're probably around $2,000 to $2,500 a year. And I know that varies in the valley, but I know in California, you can see upwards of like 15 grand a year in property taxes.
Well, that is, I mean, that's a huge point. Like places anywhere, if you're coming from where they're higher in those property taxes, and then you start looking at your payment per month because of the lower property taxes here, it's probably going to be extremely affordable overall. So that is definitely something to consider, even with the higher prices. So.
Yeah.
All right, Chip, well, hopefully that was helpful to everybody out there. Hopefully we were able to really give you a deep dive into the positives and a lot of the negatives. And there's obviously a lot of them out there. Each one is going to be different for everybody who's watching this, what's important to you. So any last minute thoughts that you want to share with anybody?
I would just say if there's something that we didn't cover or you thought we should have covered, just ask a question, drop a comment. We'd love to help you out with it and talk to you about it. So just don't hesitate.
Yeah, and if it was good info, definitely, again, give us a like. If you need more assistance, holler at us and shoot us a comment. We're always happy to hear from you guys.
Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed.